Well, a woman showed up at the pearly gates. She had a successful career, and the St. Peter said, "Welcome to heaven." No. "Welcome to heaven." And she said, "Well, thanks." And he said, "Don't get too comfortable yet, though, because we've never had a human resources director here before, so I don't really know what to do." So she said, "That's okay, just go ahead and let me in." She said, wait a second. St. Peter said, "Wait a second, I don't know." And he got orders, and he said, "Okay, what we've decided to do is to let you have a day in hell and a day in heaven, and then you can decide which one you want to be in." And she says, "That's all right, I think I already know, I want to be in heaven." And St. Peter said, "No, we've already made the decision, sorry." So he put her on the elevator down to hell, and she goes out, and the elevator doors open, and she steps out on this beautiful putting green that's all lush and green. And all of the people around her, all her friends are there, and they come and hug and kiss her, and they all look great. And they have a great day. They have a great round of golf, and they go in and eat steak and lobster. And they just have great reminiscing, and everything is just wonderful that night. But there does come a time when it's over, and her 24 hours down there was over. So she had to get back on the elevator, and she went back up to heaven. St. Peter was there and said, "Welcome to heaven. Here's your 24 hours here." And so up on the cloud, she just was enjoying herself, just playing a harp, and, just taking it mellow, and everything was cool and easy. And so, after that 24 hours, St. Peter got with her and said, "Well, you've had 24 hours in each. Which do you say?" She said, "Well, as surprised as I am, I think I really had a much better time in hell. So let me go ahead and go down there." And so he put her back on the elevator, and she went down the elevator, and the elevator doors opened. And then it was this desolate area, and all her friends were slaving, and they had just rags on, and they were slaving, filling up trash bags and taking them here and there. And she goes, "What happened here? I'm down here." And the devil comes up to her and says, and he's asking her, or she's asking him, "What happened?" And he goes, "Well, yesterday was recruiting day. Today you're part of the staff." For those of you that don't know, we do not believe in hell. But anyway, so I can get away with those jokes. Other people can too, but they mean it. So let's say our statements of truth together, please.
I am a child of God. I am deserving of my good in my life. I am accepting my good now.
Today's lesson is entitled, it's the fourth of the top 10 in spiritual unfoldment in our own lives. And it's entitled, "I Am Mine." And mind with a capital M means something different than lowercase m in unity speak. But when we talk about mind in unity, there needs to be that clarification of what part of the mind that we are talking about. Charles Fillmore had 3 phases of the mind, of the human mind, and they were, as you know, I've said before, consciousness, subconsciousness, and the superconsciousness. Each one of all these phases in mind are very similar to psychological models, yet Fillmore did a great job of explaining the 3 phases of the spiritual, with the spiritual component added to them when he was considering these phases of mind. A few weeks ago, I discussed with you, A few weeks ago, I discussed with you the idea of reality. I don't know if you remember, but it had both the reality with the lowercase r and the reality with an uppercase r. When we include mind into our reality, we can only be talking about the uppercase r reality. Now, a few weeks ago, I did talk to you about the lowercase r reality. But in the second part of Fillmore's definition of reality, he talks specifically about the uppercase r, which includes the mind in the capital M. All case causes are in mind. Error thoughts produce mental and physical inharmonies called disease. These effects are not endured and internal. They are not endured and internal. Eternal, I'm sorry. Error can be erased from the mind and be made to disappear from the body. So in other words, in more simpler terms, these thoughts, these error thoughts that we have can be removed, and in so doing, the inharmonies and the dis-ease will be removed also. This is an important part to know, especially in the times of tumult in our life. And as a society, I think we could all agree that this has been a time of tumult. But no matter what has happened around us, we can look beyond what is happening to the underlying truth, which is God, which is goodness, which is love. It is my belief that all that is happening around us is due to our own making. Our government and society has been focused on the horrors that have been happening around us, overseas, and outside of our country for many, many years, and many generations actually. But the news is quick to report it, and we hear about it all nowadays, don't we? Each of us has taken that in to be the truth with a small t of what is happening overseas, and may have changed our plans to go somewhere because of these reports and our beliefs from those reports. Yet we rarely see the good that is happening overseas, even though there is much, much, much more good is happening in those places and those occurrences than we have labeled, but we have labeled some of them as bad, and that's all we report and sometimes concentrate on. How many of us have talked with a returning serviceman or woman who has just returned from one of those places that are in turmoil, which that's where they usually are, in places of turmoil? If you have, then most of you will say that, or most of them will say that, sure, there was things happening over there that none of us like to see, but they would also be very quick to add how much good that they are doing over there and how much good the people are over there. How we are helping them and teaching them that good can prevail. You notice that I did say can prevail and not will prevail, because it is still up to us. God does not come into a situation like the Bible may make you think, a little bit, because it never has happened. You know, the Bible's always looking for this Messiah, this Savior to come. But that is never going to come until we realize that the Savior, the Messiah that we're looking for, is us. And if a person continues to look at something other than good being the dominant factor in someone else's life, then something other than good will become the dominant factor in their life. We cannot give our thoughts to something negative and expect positive to be a result in our life, no matter whether the negative thought is towards someone else or towards ourselves. In doing so, when we're thinking about negativity about someone else, in reality, with a capital R, we are talking negatively about ourselves. We have to get to that point to understand that, to have peace. As long as we are choosing a side in a fight that has been going on for generations in some cases in a foreign land, in our own mind, our mind will not have peace. And sooner or later, one mind will manifest something other than peace in our present midst. This is what is happening today in our own land. You know, Unity people can get up here, and I do it, and I don't mind doing it at all, and ignore what's going on around us, because that is not necessarily the truth, which is fine. But sometimes, at some point, we have to address it, if it gets to a point where we need to address it. And I believe it has. Not that this is a bad point, but it's just that we do not need to go any further down this road. We need to quit looking at people as different than ourselves, and look at people as God sees them, as all good. God created you, God created me, no matter what we look like on the outer. And that is why it's easy to understand that when we think about things of God, it is beyond all outer circumstances. It doesn't have to do with anything in our past or anything that has to do with our perceived future. Whatever we've lived through, we've lived through. Each person in here probably has had some type of tumult in their life. And it doesn't make a difference what you look like or what you are have been through yourself. It's what you are doing right now with those things. Just as we think ill thoughts towards someone overseas hurts us here in our own life, it also hurts us when we think that we've been wrong. I'm going to tell you a quick story. I wasn't planning on it, but I think I'm going to real quick. And the only reason I'm telling you, really, to be quite honest, is because, race has entered into our political thing and into our news lately. And the only reason I'm telling you this story is because I'm white. My grandmother's father owned all of southeast Kansas and part of Texas, and it's a small part of Texas. Owned all of it. Very, very wealthy man. But at some point during that time frame, none of it got to me. And I don't want to get into the details of why it didn't get to me. But you know what? I could sit here and say, I've been wrong. I have been wrong because that should have came down to me. And in a way, so I have had that thought, I'll admit it. I have had that thought. Yet it does me no good to think about what has happened in my past or before I even got here. It does me no good. How does that help me now? No, but the government isn't going to come back. The government ended up taking the land. The government isn't going to come back and say, Warren, you know what? We did that and we probably shouldn't have. Here's some reparations. That's not going to happen. If I'm waiting for that, I'm going to be waiting until I'm gone. My physical body's gone. There's no need in me waiting for that. And all I'm doing is wasting my life. It's up to me not to do that. There can be changes made today where that thing that happened then can't happen again. And that would make me better, I think, because I would have the opportunity to say that's not going to happen to anybody else. And we can work on that. But collectively, we have to think positively about each other. And if we actually did that, then on one-on-one meetings where we're changing the things that need to be changed, everybody would agree. There wouldn't be a disagreement. Our mind has to return to the purity from which it came. Each one of us came from that pure, good thought. We have learned that we are different when we aren't. We have to go back to recognizing that we aren't different. There may be unique abilities that each of us have and strengths that we have that I may not. Yet, we can celebrate those instead of looking at them as a negative. Our mind must return to that purity again from which it came. You can jail me, you can beat me, and take away all my possessions, but you cannot take away my peace and my belief in God and goodness as the nature of humanity unless I give it to you. You can't do it. I have to give that to you. And I'm not going to. Yet when I think differently about other people in my own mind, that maybe I'm better, or that they are not good, they need a handout, even not those simple thoughts, that sometimes we think about. People don't need a handout, they need a hand up. Or that they owe me something, the government owes me that money, or owes me that land back. Then I have already given away my peace. I've already given my peace away. Because I'm not at peace within myself. Peace begins with me, and peace will begin in the world with each of us. Our mind has to return to the divine mind, God, which is goodness. We cannot let others define how our life is going to go. I am a child of God, and I'm going to see the same in all others despite outer appearances. There's a place here in town that I've been to a few times, haven't been in quite a while actually, and I'm sure some of y'all know, some of y'all don't know about it. It's a lake area with a bunch of trailer parks around it. I can't even remember the name of it. Anybody remember the name of it?
Sunrise.
It might be Sunrise. It's a very low income area. A lot of Hispanics, but there's a mix of people in there. I have a friend that in Rotary that provides jobs for a lot of people. That's her business, and she has a lot of clientele in there. But she won't go in there after dark because she says it's just too dangerous. And I'm not going to blame her for not doing that, because there are places that are dangerous that we shouldn't go into if we at certain times. But we have to think of those places differently. And we have to start going into those places at different times to make them different than maybe what they appear to be now. It starts with our thoughts and continues with our words and actions. There's a Bible story in the Bible, that illustrates this. Illustrates this, and it's one that you've heard, but maybe haven't heard it in this way before. It's about the golden calf. You remember that story? Some of you do. It's an Old Testament story. It's about Moses and Aaron, and when Moses is going up to get the first 10 commandments, he on the way down he broke them first and had to go back. There was originally 20, and then he had to go back after he broke the first 10. So who knows? The 10 that we had were probably the 11 through 20. Anyway, it's from Exodus 32, and it's the whole chapter. And it starts like this. When the people saw that Moses delayed from coming down from the mountain, the people gathered around Aaron. This wasn't a big delay. I mean, he was a day late. And back then, when you travel by foot, it takes a while to get places. So they gathered around Aaron and came and said, because Aaron was the next in charge behind Moses at the time, and said to him, "Come, make gods for us. Who shall go before us? As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." So just think, try to put yourself in their place, the people's place. The person that we were seeing as God, Moses, is late. He's not come like we thought he was going to come. Does it sound like something else, some other story? It's the same thing. There's a lot of things like this through the Bible, but it's all the same. So what has become to him? And Aaron said to them, "Take off the gold rings that are on your ears, and your wives, and your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." So all the people took off their gold rings and from their ears and brought them to Aaron. He took the gold from them, formed it into a mold, and cast an image of a calf. And they said, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it, and Aaron made proclamation that tomorrow shall be a festival of the Lord. They rose early the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought sacrifices of well-being as the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up and to revel. The Lord said to Moses, "Go down at once. Your people whom you brought up out of the land of Egypt have acted perversely. They have been quick to turn aside from the way that I commanded them. They have cast for themselves an image of a calf and have worshipped it and sacrificed to it, and said, 'These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up from the land of Egypt.' The Lord said to Moses, 'I have seen this people, how stiff-necked they are. Now let me alone, so that my wrath may burn hot upon them, and I consume them. And of you I will make a great nation.'" So the story, God is telling Moses, you've been a pretty cool guy, but these guys that didn't even wait for you a little bit because you're a little bit late, we're going to burn them. They're all going to be gone. Don't worry about them. Now in Unity, we don't even believe in a vengeful God, so how can this be? How can this be? The wrath that people feel burn hot against them is what? It's their own making. They didn't want to wait for Moses, did they? They didn't want to wait for their goodness, so they decided to go a different route. Sound like anybody following false prophets today? God does not smite you. You smite yourself when you hold ill feelings toward another. You smite yourself by thinking and acting against anyone else rather than looking at that same part that is triggered in you. And if you've forgotten the word smite is pretty powerful. It means hurt someone or eventually even kill them. When we smite someone, what we are actually doing, though, is hurting ourselves. It's well past time that we need to stop hurting ourselves. The story, if you remember, goes on and it says, Moses implored and begged the Lord and all this about, please don't hurt my people. And he talked God into not hurting his people. And it says at the end of this part, and the Lord changed his mind about the disaster that he was planning to bring on his people. But who really stopped the wrath from happening here? God did not stop it on his own. Moses talked him into stopping it, didn't he? And if Moses talked him into stopping it, then Moses stopped it. It's the same within our own life, though. We have to be the one to stop allowing our thoughts of wrath to become on others. Once we stop it in our own mind, it stops producing after its kind. It's the law of mind action, just in reverse. Remember, law of mind action, thoughts in mind produce after their kind. Thoughts not in your mind will not produce after their kind. So then Moses turned and went down from the mountain. And when he got down and saw Aaron and all the people, he wasn't too happy either. And someone asked him, or God asked him, said, there is noise of war in the camp. But Moses stopped and said, it is not the sound made by victors, and it's not the sound made by losers. It is the sound made by revelers. And as soon as he came and saw what was going on at the camp, Moses got mad himself and told Aaron to get rid of the calf, to burn it back up, and get the gold. Or actually, he said, make all the people drink the gold. Boy, wouldn't that taste good?
No.
So after he came down and got angry about it himself, he had all the people drink the gold after the calf was melted down. But each one of us has both the Moses and the Aaron inside of us, where we have lost our way sometimes and been impatient for our good to happen in our life, and then had mercy and said, hey, we can get over this. We don't have to do this. And then later on said, get mad about it again. The Aaron mind is the weaker of the two, and is quick to change life direction when outer circumstances change. I don't know about you, but I've done that probably in my life. I've changed direction pretty quick when things didn't go my way. The Aaron mind does not want to wait for any promise of good to come down the road for specific actions necessary on our part. Well, after Moses got mad, he said that he wanted God to punish him. Go ahead, punish them. They've been worse than I thought. Punish them. The Moses mind in us, though, is more patient than the Aaron mind, and not looking for outer circumstances to change his personal belief. Yet, when outer circumstances are different than what Moses' mind believes, they should be different, or he switches his mind because the actions of those he wanted to be a certain way were different than he thought. And so he's still condemned. this whole story shows us how we can switch fairly quickly from thinking good thoughts about a situation until something triggers in us and we think negatively about the situation. And it can be about certain people even. Now I know if you have an extended family that you love every single person in it. And that you get along with every single person in it. And you never have arguments with any person in it. But in my personal experience, I have had those times where I have not gotten along with certain family members. Regrettably, in my personal experience, some of those people have made their transition with those disagreements still, on top. And I'll just say from my personal experience. And I'm thinking about this, and it's kind of sad really to think about it right now, but still, I was right, he was wrong. That's just true. I was right, he was wrong. But he's dead and gone. What good does it do me to hold ill feelings towards someone for whatever happened in the past? It doesn't do me any good. So, that's a part of myself that maybe I need to work on. To release things that don't serve me anymore. And really, those things didn't serve me at all at that time anyway. There's a way that we can respond without losing our cool and without having ill feelings towards someone. We can if we can't handle a situation, remove ourselves from it. We can remove ourselves from it. We don't have to be in a situation we don't want to be in. We're very fortunate in that way. But we have to be careful about how we think about other people. And I think it's interesting sometimes how, in my life at least, comparing that situation to someone I loved and having that disagreement to a situation where it may be someone I don't even know that I would give more benefit of the doubt to than someone I love and I know very well. The human nature is good. But the human condition sometimes can be pretty darn nitpicky, can't it? The more we know about each other when we are in a relationship, the more we see of each other. And I guarantee you right now, and those of you who are married or have been married know this for true, or been with anybody for a long time, there's no one person that is going to be exactly like you and like exactly the same things you like and just be exactly what you want them to be. That just doesn't exist. Yeah, I know I ain't for you, sweetheart. But the fact is that you were made uniquely, and that's something we should celebrate and not look at something as different and something that we don't like. Because when our collective consciousness is at a place where there is a critical mass of people who are thinking ill of other people anywhere in the world, then anyone can be caught in the resulting manifestation of that ill will. Anyone can be. One of our simple missions here on earth is to bring a better way of living to all that we come in contact with. That not only includes our neighbors, but also it includes ourselves. And that's where we have to start. You can only create peace in the world by having peace within yourself. And in order to have that peace within yourself, you can't be thinking ill about other people to have pure peace. In order to do that, all we have to do is be aware of what we are thinking in our mind and be aware of those thoughts, whether they are in congruence with divine mind or not. All thoughts that we are thinking coming from our connection with God through our super consciousness is of divine mind. So are our thoughts coming in reaction to what we see with our physical eyes? Or are we using our mind's eye, capital M, mind's eye, that sees the possibility of creating a world that works for all? Do we look at our life and blame a past that cannot affect us right, or cannot or does not affect us right now, that we can't do nothing about? Or do we look at the present moment and create something that is going to improve our own life and those that we come in contact with? All these options and more are always available to us at any time. What we choose not only colors our own life, but also colors the lives of our society. God is always willing, ready, and able to bless us at every moment. But we have to be willing to accept that blessing. And if we're not, then we're going to have trouble. But we don't have to. It can stop in a moment. So as we go forth this week and really with the rest of our life, if we come in contact with someone that we can't agree with, walk on down the road. There are going to be people right now in the human condition that are not going to agree with you on something that is emotional to you. Yet it is easier in our spiritual growth to understand that if we can release that, then we are able to rise a little bit. Not above someone, but in our own awareness of who and what we are. And the more we can do that, the less times anybody's going to be able to trip a trigger. Because there's not going to be any triggers left in us. And so as we go forth this week, I want you to know that you are blessed with all of God's blessings right here, right now, no matter what is going on in your life. And I do have a question for you. Will you accept those blessings?
Yes.
Good. Amen.
Amen.